Welcome to Football Today, team profiles and projections. And today we are looking at the Miami Dolphins. Came in at 14th in our power rankings after 11-6 season. We saw the offensive output that they did last year, right? Second in scoring, fourth in EPA per play. Defensively, a little disappointing, right? 22nd in scoring, 15th in EPA per play. This is Mike McDaniel's third season after coming over from the 49ers as their run game coordinator. You know, that he brought Frank Smith, the Rams run game coordinator, over there. And then Vic Fangio gone. Anthony Weaver, the D-line assistant head coach from the Ravens, comes over. This team has lit it up under Mike McDaniel, right? Been extremely fun to watch. They scored 70 points in the game. He's brought new trends and ideas to the NFL that offenses copy. But ultimately 0-2 in the playoffs. I understand their quarterback was out for one of those games. And as exciting as this team is, I'm not super excited because I'm holding them to another standard. Find six playoff success. Find success versus the better teams in the NFL. So it's like they're going to be exciting this year, but they need to be held to another, that next level as a standard.
Yeah, and I obviously we want this team to find playoff success, but you need to beat good teams to win in the playoffs, and they just haven't done that, man. Miami is 17-4 against non-playoff teams over the last two seasons. They averaged 30 points a game. They're 3-12 versus playoff teams the last two seasons, and they average 20 points per game. Tua has thrown more than 2 touchdown passes in just one of those games out of 15 games. They went 10-1 versus teams that missed the playoffs last year, outscored them by 196 points. But they only played 6 playoff teams last year, and they went 1-5 in those games, and were outscored by 91 total points, and that's 15 points per game. So
yeah, you can even include the playoff game. They went 1-6 and averaged 13 points per game, right? And it's, their last 3 games, they could have went 13-4 and been the number 1 seed playing in Miami, and they scored 19 on Baltimore in a blowout, 14 on Buffalo in an AFC East title game, and then 7 on the Chiefs in the playoffs. And it comes down to Tua, right? Like you got to be harsh on how you're grading Tua, right? Because he had 5 interceptions in those 3 games, and I'm talking ugly interceptions too. Right? Like 21-13 driving at the end of the half into double coverage versus the Ravens, and then quadruple coverage versus the Ravens, versus the Bills, an underthrown pass into double coverage. Then into double coverage down 7 on their final drive, and then an overthrow versus the Chiefs. Like he's been really, really bad in the versus these good teams. And he shouldn't be. With the offensive system that they have, there's really no reason for it, right? And that's where you start to point to, like, okay, is this scheme elevating Tua, or can Tua take this to another level? And I'll be honest, like, I don't think he's going to, right? I think he's going to grow as his NFL career comes, but I don't think there's going to be this jump from last year to this season where he's figured it out. They can run more traditional drop back passing versus the better teams. Like I don't think that's going to be there, and I don't think Mike McDaniel is going to stop doing what he's doing because he knows what he has at quarterback.
Well, McDaniel, he really had like a masterful offseason, because the Dolphins went from being good, they were good in 2022, to just like some incredible offensive stuff. And we told the difference between the losing teams and the winning teams. We obviously told those differences, but I want to highlight the good things that this Dolphins offense does. And then maybe we can break down and nitpick, well, why doesn't this work against the good teams? McDaniel made some major changes because they had to keep Tua upright and healthy. That was a big concern heading into this year. Like, Tua needs to stay healthy. He did. And I think McDaniel played a huge role in that. And it also helped him in his efficiency at the same time. So the main things that I think he did, Bobby, and I have a ton of stats, and I'll try to go through it somewhat quick, but the main things that he did was play action game on early downs. It got better. Running the ball to the edges, they did it a shit ton more. And they also kept Tua healthy by lowering the pass rate on early downs, especially in the red zone, and getting rid of the ball faster. I have numbers on this stuff, but you go ahead and take over.
Well, yeah, that's, McDaniel is the best at getting the success, getting the most out of his players, and he has players, right? Like, it all starts with Tyreek
really
Hill
good players
and Jalen Waddle, right? Like, this is top tier. Like Tyreek Hill has had back-to-back 1,700 yard seasons, 1,800 last year.
He's finished top 10 in MVP the last 2 years. And at one point, like I was giving the MVP award at one point to Tyreek
Oh,
Hill.
me too. But, he missed the game towards the end of the year and then led the NFL in yards and touchdowns. You pair him with Jalen Waddle, who gets 1,000 every year. 1,300 in 2022. Like in 2022, those two combined outgained 5 passing offenses. Right?
Trivia.
And they missed 4 games last year combined, and they still outgained the Panthers. And they would have outgained 7 if you went by their per game rate.
Little trivia question. And this is tough if you got to know a typical yards per route run number. According to Warren Sharp, Jalen Waddle's yards per route run when Tyreek Hill is not on the field.
First.
Give me the number.
I don't know. 2.35.
No, it's more. It's above 3.
Wow.
Which is, dude, that's crazy. It's nuts, man. They do have 2 number ones, but then they also have a really good play caller and a really good coordinator that I'm so jealous of the way that they can throw out of running formations. I think that makes them so much stronger because when you put Tyreek Hill close to the line of scrimmage and you condense these formations and then you put these guys in motion at the snap and maybe you got a heavier personnel out there, and if you have a heavier personnel, they're going to throw out of it, and you're going to have dudes that burn you. And if you go light, then they're going to have dudes that take the ball to the edge, like Achane and Mostert, and especially Achane with like an explosive run rate that was like 10% maybe.
He had 8 yards per carry, which was the most in the NFL, right? You look at like some great backs, and they average less than 4 yards per carry. He was averaging over double than that.
So it's not fair. It's not fair.
Just like there's tons of misdirection in the run game. They have a legit fullback in Alec Ingold. Their tight ends are good blockers, right? It was so obvious that Mike Gesicki was just not a fit for this team, and they moved on from him. Like it's just pure, unadulterated speed. Like I feel like Reese Bobby when I'm talking about this offense. And I love the Jalen Wright pick to replace Achane if he goes down.
Or even Mostert as he's aging too.
Yeah, so they really do a good job. I think Jonnu Smith is going to give you another great way of running out of 12 personnel. I think he's really, really valuable to them. And Durham Smythe, he's not going to put up yards, but he was second in success rate for all receiving options in the NFL last year. Now only had 35 catches, but it's like every single one of those counted. They just do so much, and it's just so hard to game plan for. And that Mike McDaniel is going to come with something new this year, right? He doesn't sit on his hands and like, okay, this is what we do. That short motion, which, they squat Tyreek Hill or whoever down and then motion him out wide the defense. And that's what's beautiful about this offense is like, okay, throw to a window. Trust that it's going to be there. Tua throws with great anticipation, throw into that window. But here's the issue with this offense where it's got like, they're going to have to do some more just traditional drop back passing when it comes down to the playoff teams because they're just going to be better prepared. They're going to have better players. And I don't think Tua has that in him. And I also think the offensive line, you're like, oh, they really performed well. But I really think
it's going to hold them. It's going to hold them back against good teams.
Yeah. And I think the offensive line, it's like, oh, look how well they're performing. But I think it's just like they kind of coach around them really well. And I do worry about this offensive line a lot. Like Armstead has never played a full season in his career. He missed 7 games last year. He's 33 years old. Phenomenal when he's on the field.
Yeah.
They lost Hunt. Connor Williams, I think is going to come back. Maybe when this episode releases, he is back. But it does seem like he will be back on the Dolphins. But they're going to need to be a little more traditional. Not all the way, right, but they're going to need some more traditional passing to take that next step, and I don't know if Tua's the guy. And I think there's a reason why they've probably waited to get his contract done, praying that he doesn't get a contract before this episode releases.
yeah.
Maybe for our episode, if he gets a contract, I'm happy for him.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, the bottom line is I already broke it down just in the brief areas, but I want to go kind of piece by piece here a little quickly. First down, money down for the Dolphins last year, and that was a down where I guarantee McDaniels looked at, hey, we're kind of middle of the pack here, a little bit above average on early downs of 2022. Well, how can we get better? They had 26% of their attempts at or behind the line of scrimmage, and they were number 12th in EPA per attempt when they're throwing. In 2023, they brought that down by 5%. They increased the air yards per attempt from 11.3 to 12.2, and they went from number 12 in EPA per attempt to number 4 in EPA per attempt. So they were one of the best throwing teams in the National Football League. I also mentioned how they ran the ball better on early downs too, and that really helped them. You bring in the fullback, you get rid of a guy like Gesicki, you get more of your personnel in here, and they went from 33% of the time where they ran outside zone, they bumped that up to 44%. They had 81 runs going to the left end, 87 towards the middle, 79 towards the right end. They had 97 runs up the middle last year and 45 and 49 going to the outside. So they basically, almost doubled their runs that they had going to the outside last year and utilizing outside zone. I think that fits Achane, and then even Mostert, who came from the 49ers, obviously fits them what they were doing well. And then Tua's, now this is the fun part, where Tua's average time in the pocket in 2023 went down from 2.3 to 2.1 seconds. So 2.3 average time in the pocket, what he was doing in 2022, that's already a pretty quick time to, be average time to be in the pocket. To bring that down to 2.1 is nuts. And then overall, Tua had the quickest time to throw at 2.36 in the NFL last year, but still had an average depth to target of 7.8 yards. So it wasn't like we're talking about a conservative running back. Yeah. I think where this offense is held back, it is with the lack of offensive line. And when Tua gets under pressure, he is awful.
Yeah, awful. He throws ugly interceptions. And that's the thing. If they had one or the other, right, they had a quarterback who could maneuver the pocket better, create more, then it's like, okay, this team can be a Super Bowl contender. Or if they had, the Detroit Lions offensive line, it's like, okay, Tua's more than capable to, push this team forward with this offensive line and this coach and these weapons. The issue is those two together, I think, is going to be an ugly pairing. And if Armstead's out, then it could get brutal if you're trying to do those types of things. And I just don't know. I think this is going to be a team that's like at the end of the season is going to be disappointed of how it turned out. And I don't blame the coaching. I don't blame the weaponry. I'm going to blame mostly Tua because it's not just up. Not the best. Like, it's ugly. When it's mattered, it has been flat out ugly from Tua.
And I am going to blame the front office too, where this has been a Chris Greer. This has been an issue for a long time with the Dolphins that they just haven't been able to fix this offensive line. They haven't.
No. Who should start in the slot? Braxton Berrios or Odell? I know Hill and Waddle will get their share of slot snaps.
Does it matter with how much, like,
they're going to run a ton of 12 personnel with Smythe and Jonnu. But it'd be interesting to see if they can get anything out of OBJ, right? Like, the Ravens team desperately needed him to be something, and he just wasn't. I think Berrios probably should get more snaps, and OBJ can be the kind of guy who comes in when one of those two is off the field or injured. I think it's a fine signing for them, but I don't think he's going to add a ton to them.
Tyreek may spend the majority of the time in the slot. I could be wrong on that. But who's going to be their number 3 receiver? That's what you're asking.
Yeah, that's what I'm mostly meaning, because they line these guys up all over. Defensively, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb both coming off of injuries, an Achilles for Phillips and ACL for Chubb. I really worry about that. Right? If those guys were healthy, so they lost Christian Wilkins, Andrew Van Ginkel, and Raekwon Davis, right? And you're like, oh, you lost, out of their 6 top pressure earners right now, 3 are gone, 2 coming off those injuries, and that leaves Zach Seiler, who is coming off of a career year for them, right? Is he going to?
He had a good year.
Yeah, is he going to put up that same production? Even if he does, but I do think that they did a good job replacing the guys they lost. The Phillips and Chubb, I worry because they're coming off of injuries, but they can't control that. But they added Calais Campbell. I think that's Shaq Barrett and then Chop Robinson, right? I went and looked at the number. They let out 19 sacks and 134 total pressures. They brought in 12 sacks and 101 total pressures, plus Chop Robinson as a rookie. I actually think they did a good job of replacing the guys that they lost with some short-term plays, and then obviously Chop the first rounder. It's just, we need those. They need those guys to come back from the injuries and be, close to their normal self.
Is Calais Campbell ever going to slow down?
I don't know, dude. He's so good. He's finally returning to Miami, where he wore that prestigious number 81. College football being out reminded me of I love playing with defensive end number 81, Calais Campbell, back in the day. I don't know, but I love him. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL, and I hope he never goes away.
Drafted in 2008, and he is turning 38 September 1st. And he's not Saxonville anymore, but damn, he's still pretty good.
Well, we had the Falcons play TPP come out yesterday, and we're like, this is a huge loss. He was their best player on their defensive line last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think they did a good job, like I said, of replacing those guys. And I obviously losing Christian Wilkins hurts, but they added a lot of defensive talent, right? In the secondary, they're Jordan Brooks, I think, is a top 10 linebacker in the NFL, right? And you pair him with David Long Jr., and they even added Anthony Walker Jr., who's a good linebacker from the Browns. They go from Jerome Baker and David Long Jr. to now, hey, which one of these good players do you play? I know I really like David Long Jr. I know he's not everyone's favorite linebacker, but I really like him. I would pick Long as that guy. And then you pair him Jordan Brooks is an upgrade over Jerome Baker. And then in the secondary, right? I know they lost Brandon Jones, but you add Kendall Fuller, who played awesome last year, to go with Jalen Ramsey will be fully, not coming off of an injury. And then Javon Holland, who's been that guy for a long time. And then, we saw the Ravens run a bunch of 3 safety sets. I don't know if Anthony Weaver is going to, do that same thing, but I'm sure he's going to use some of it. And you add, you have Javon Holland with Jordan Poyer and Marcus May. This is the defense that has a lot of talent.
Yeah. Yeah, they certainly do. And Kendall Fuller is my X factor, where he played at some points last year, and for a large majority of the year, he played like an all-pro, except his only issue is he was on the most undisciplined defense of all time in Washington that at times put him in bad spots, and he kind of got cooked on national television against DJ Moore, hand up. That was not a good game for Fuller, but I think he can be, and I think he is a number 1 corner in the NFL, and then you're adding him to a team with Jalen Ramsey, and then 2 safeties where they're awesome, and that's what they do. They bait you into turnovers. All 4 of these guys are gonna be playmakers. All 4 of them.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how they operate leaving Vic Fangio. Again, their linebacker room is stronger with good depth, and they did a good job replacing their talent on the front. It's just, I think, Anthony Weaver coming over as the D-line coach, you saw what he was able to do with guys in Baltimore.
Yeah, Kyle Van Noy and Yannick Ngakoue having career years in year 8, 9, 10, whatever they're in.
Last year was a little disappointing for them defensively, and you wouldn't think so with Vic Fangio as their defensive coordinator.
There was tension, man. I did a little reading on it. There was tension, and Vic Fangio might have been checked out, and he might have already been in Philadelphia even while he was still physically in Miami, Florida.
Yeah, so, I expect his defense to get better.
Yeah, I think they have a chip on their shoulder because they want to perform better than what they did last year, and they didn't like the way that Vic Fangio was calling. They didn't think that, and this is shocking because I view Vic Fangio as one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL, but it was just not a right fit. And good on Mike McDaniel on kind of, hey, this isn't working. You clearly don't want to be here, moving on, despite the numbers not being terrible and trying to force it to work. Heard what his players were saying. They were not happy. And I think some of these guys are going to play with the chip on their shoulder because they felt personally like that Vic Fangio wasn't doing right by them.
And good on them not bringing in Brandon Staley. I was panicked when they said that he was interviewing, Staley to be the DC. So good on them not doing that. So I'm excited. And again, with Anthony Weaver coming over, I don't know what his defensive identity is going to be. Right? He's been, obviously there's going to be some. You would think there's going to be some Mike McDonald influence there.
Was he there when Wink was there too?
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you,
only 1 year of it, but yeah.
No, but I'll tell you the 2 things that.
And he was the run game coordinator on that defense that last year, Wink, and they were the number 1 run defense in the NFL.
And I'll tell you what they have in common. Very 2 different defenses from a stylistic standpoint, but what they have in common, and this is what I think we're going to see, regardless of what the blitz rate is or, coverage scheme, whatever. These Baltimore guys are going to try and disguise something at the line of scrimmage and make you think that you're seeing something, and then they're going to back out of it at the last second and try and confuse the hell out of the offense and the quarterback. That's what they're going to do.
Yeah, and they've got the guys to do it, right? You got Ramsey and Fuller, who are both guys who can play outside in. You have, three safeties who can play all over the field in Holland, Poyer, and May. And then I think you've got enough. You got the linebackers who fit that too, right? So I think this defense is going to improve. It's just can't. Will it be viewed as, even if they're like ninth in scoring or whatever, will we view this as like this is the defense that makes a huge difference in games? I don't know if they're going to be that type of unit.
Yeah, we know pass rush gets more valuable and more important in the postseason. And if these guys get healthy, and Jalen Phillips is a huge key to this too, because he was a guy that got sacks last year. He could get more pressures. He only played 8 games. Bradley Chubb was awesome last year. Like around 70 pressures on PFF. Got a ton of sacks, so that wasn't the issue for him. And Sealer, him and Wilkins had similar numbers in terms of win rate, and Wilkins was overall better, but they had similar overall.
Yeah, Sealer played really good for them.
Advanced numbers. So if they can have the rotation of pass rushers of 4 guys, Shaq Barrett, Chop Robinson, Jalen Phillips, and Bradley Chubb, with Calais Campbell in there and Sealer, I mean that is a rotation that can succeed in the playoffs, and we've seen how pass rush is amplified in the postseason.
Additions and losses in free agency and trade. They added Odell Beckham Jr., Jack Driscoll, Shaq Barrett, Jordan Brooks, Anthony Walker, Calais Campbell, Neville Gallimore, Kendall Fuller, Ciaran Neal. It's like he's a guy who started a lot of games in Buffalo. Jordan Poyer and Marcus May. They lost Connor Williams as of now. Robert Hunt, Cedric Wilson Jr., Christian Wilkins, Raekwon Davis, Andrew Van Ginkel, Jerome Baker, Xavier Howard, Eli Apple, Deshaun Elliott, and Brandon Jones. Christian Wilkins is the best player on this unit, but I think they got overall better. I didn't put Jonnu Smith as well, which I think makes a big difference too. I think they got better.
I would say they got better as well.
And then the draft class. Chop Robinson, I'm so excited to see what he is year one, right? He's the speedy edge, but he's undersized. Can he make an impact year one? Patrick Paul in the second round. Hopefully he doesn't have an impact year one, but talented. Can they, get something out of him? Jalen Wright in the 4th round, which I think is great A-chain insurance to run this offense. Mo Kamara in the 5th round is a guy a lot of people like he is someone who can develop into like an Andrew Van Ginkel type role. I don't know if you see that year one. Malik Washington in the 6th, Patrick McMorris, and then Taj Washington. So I think this is the draft class where it's like you got some guys that can grow down the road and also guys who can contribute day one.
That's a really strong front 4.
Yeah. And they've got some depth. Who's your X factor?
Yeah, it's Kendall Fuller. I said a couple minutes ago.
Yeah. Mine is Jonnu Smith, right? He's not like this great receiving tight end, but he gives you more receiving value than Durham Smythe, and you keep him on the field. Like I think 12 personnel and maybe trying to be able to run the ball a little better versus those playoff teams and having some more effective play action in those games can make a huge difference. And I think Jonnu does that for them. So their over-under is at 9.5 wins. Over or under?
Bobby, they will play 10 games versus teams that finished over 500 last year, and 9 of which that are expected to post winning seasons this year.
Well, think about their last 6 games, right? The Dolphins are a team that's going to come out with this hot new, trending thing in the NFL, and teams pick up on a little bit. Their last 6 games are the Packers, Jets, Texans, 49ers, Browns, and then Jets again. Now, if Aaron Rodgers gets injured, you get 2 easy wins in there, but I'm going under. I think they go 9-8.
I think they win 10 games, but they finish 3rd place in the AFC East.
I mean, that can very well happen. If Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, I mean, the Jets are a win-now team, and then obviously Buffalo's going to be Buffalo. But Buffalo is in a weird year, right, where they lost a lot of talent. Some of those guys' names are popping up on this Dolphins roster. The AFC East is fascinating because you can make a good argument for 3 teams winning it. But yeah, I think they go under at 9-8, and we'll see if that's good enough for the playoffs. Which, hey, I mean, they went 11-6 last year. Yeah, I go under, which is sad because there's so many things I'm excited about this team, but I hate to be this way, but I'm just not a believer in Tua.
So do you think like teams are going to start to figure it out?
I mean, the winning teams have kind of already figured it out. The good teams have. I think they're going to beat the shit out of bad teams. There's just too much. There's too much speed and talent on that offense. They've gotten the shit kicked. Like Tua has. Again, it's not so. We're not talking about a guy who has 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 280. Like he stinks in these big games.
That's why I think they can get 10 wins though. Like there's 17
Oh
games.
yeah, they can absolutely get 10 wins. Like there's no doubt about that. They can get 11, 12 wins, but I just that last 6 games when they've struggled, down the stretch, is that's an issue. If those were the first in the beginning of their season, isn't any slouch schedule either, but I think they'll get some wins. But I'm going under. I got them at 9-8. So, all right, that was the Miami Dolphins, and this is football today.